Symbiosis. Now listen here, Pilgrim. This is how it's gonna be. Standing too close to a flame that's burning hotter than the sun in the middle of July. I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test, train them is my cause. I hear that train a-comin', it's rolling round the bend. This guitar string has been broken since I don't know when. Hi guys! So this is an episode review for Symbiosis, and I'm kind of nervous because it's been over a year now since I last did an episode review, and I kind of had to remind myself of how I set them up with the recaps and stuff. But I'm pretty nervous. I mean, you can tell I'm shaking. No, I'm just kidding. Those are withdrawals. And see, it's funny because this episode is about withdrawals. See how I segued there? Yeah? Huh? Alright, so this episode, it starts out with the Enterprise investigating some solar phenomenon going on a planet. And it's disrupting some of their communications, some of their, like, electro equipment. The screens have these blue lights on them, and you can tell it's kind of messing up the ship. And they're doing that when they get a distress signal from a ship that's being pulled into orbit around a planet, and their ship's breaking. Well, it's not breaking apart yet. They're about to get pulled into orbit. It's going to break apart. Basically, they're going to die. So the Enterprise shows up, they try to talk to them, no one on the ship can really help, and then all of a sudden, they're all really, like, spaced out and chill. Spaced out. But they're all really chill, and it's almost like they're on drugs, and they don't know how to fix their ship, they don't really care, they try to do a tractor beam, doesn't work, they try to beam them on board, but instead the people beam over this, like, cargo container. So eventually, they get 4 of the 6 people out, and it turns out that 2 of them are from the planet Brekka, and 2 of them are from the planet Inara, which I may be pronouncing wrong because that's the woman's name from Firefly, but I think that's what the 2 are called. And it turns out that the people from Inara are selling to the people from Brekka this medicine to cure, or not to cure, but to kind of help with the symptoms of this plague that's been going on in Brekka for the past 200 years. And pretty soon the 2 people from Brekka start exhibiting the symptoms. They're like sweating, but Dr. Crusher can't find any problems with them. They have symptoms, but she can't find anything wrong with them. And so they're arguing over payment for this medicine, and the people who are selling it think that they should keep it because the payment wasn't delivered, it was destroyed with the ship. The people who need it think that they should just give it to them because they're dying without it. So they agree to give the 2 sick people 2 doses. And whenever they take it, it's pretty much like they're like getting a hit from a drug, like they're immediately fine. Beverly realizes that the plague was cured 200 years ago, and ever since then, the people on this planet have just been having an addiction to this thing that they think is the cure, but it's actually a narcotic. And it also turns out that the people from Inara know about it, and their entire economy is based on producing this one product, selling it to the Breckons, and that's like their entire economy is based on that. So if the people who are sick ever find out that it's a drug, their entire economy will collapse. So they have this quandary. Picard doesn't want to break the Prime Directive. Beverly wants them to because it's a parasitic relationship. The episode is called Symbiosis, but you find out that it's actually just exploitation. It's not symbiotic, it's parasitic. So, eventually at the end, the people who are selling the drug agree to give it to them because obviously they don't want them to find out that they're just having withdrawals, because eventually they're going to, get off of the drug and then they won't need it anymore. And they can't let that happen, so they give it to them, and Picard was going to give them these 2, I don't know what they were. I don't know if they were plasma injectors. It was some kind of a coil that goes in their ship. And because some of all their freighters are damaged and they can't make any more runs to the other planet. But Picard says, I'm not going to give these to you. So even though he couldn't break the Prime Directive, he couldn't tell them that they were addicted to drugs, and he couldn't prevent them from receiving the drugs, he could not give them the parts to fix their ship, and that would prohibit them from ever getting any more of the drugs. And so they're going to go through symptoms, or they're going to have the symptoms, they're going to go through withdrawals, but they're also going to eventually get better. So it's really a I mean, there wasn't much to this episode. It starts out with investigating the sun, and you think that's going to be like a plot point, but it's not really. The only thing it does is, actually, I don't think it does anything, because it kind of, their communications are messed up throughout the show, but like, it's fine. There's really no reason for them to be investigating this solar phenomenon. And that's kind of my problem with this episode. Is like, there's a lot of stuff that happens that doesn't make any sense. Because at the beginning, they're talking to the people on the freighter that's being pulled into orbit, and they're panicking. They lose communication, they get it back, and all of a sudden they're calm, like they've taken the drug. But like, it doesn't seem like that would happen, because it doesn't seem like when their ship's breaking up, the Anarans are just going to give them some of this drug that they were hoarding. Like, that doesn't make any sense. I have a couple other things written down that I didn't think made sense. It just, whenever the freighter was going down, Picard was trying to get them to tell him what was wrong with the ship to see if he could fix it. And they didn't know what was wrong with it. Eventually Data figured it out. They told them how to fix it, and they couldn't even fix it because they didn't know how. So the Brackens, something, they had no idea how to even fix their own technology. And I don't think that was explained, because originally I thought it was going to be because the Anarans, like, gave them their technology, but that's not what it seemed like either. And I really didn't mean to just immediately delve into what was wrong with the show. I wanted to kind of, segue into that a little bit, kind of talk about the episode in general, but those were just those points that really stuck out in my mind while I was watching it, and it kind of bothered me. And the thing about this episode is that it's really just like, sorry, my hair is being crazy today. It's really just like a giant dare talk. Like, even at one point, Wesley is asking Data, why would anyone ever get addicted to drugs voluntarily? And Tasha's like, it's because it makes you feel good, and it makes you feel like you're in control. And you don't mean to get addicted, but it's just so you can have an escape. And Wesley's like, I don't understand it. And it's kind of hinted that Tasha was on drugs at some point on her colony, and Data kind of gives her this look, saying like, oh, you were on drugs at some point on your colony. And the whole thing is kind of forced and contrived. I was just looking it up on like Wikipedia, and it said that I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's a writer. I don't remember. It was like it was one of the people, the producers of the episode. He had recently been writing for Miami Vice, and so that's kind of why we got pulled into like the drug thing, just because I think it was just kind of like in his mind. So it was like, hey, let's do an episode about this. And it seems out of place in the show. I mean, obviously, you can pretty much do anything with Star Trek. Nothing's really out of place, but the whole feeling that it's very preachy, and just the scene with Wesley is awkward. I actually do like Beverly in this episode, because the whole, so the whole time she's actually like a main character in this episode, as opposed to a lot of the other first season episodes. And one of the reasons that she leaves at the end of the season is because she doesn't think that the reason that Gates McFadden leaves at the end of this episode is because she doesn't think that her character was being developed well enough, which I'm not sure if that's why Tasha left or not, but really none of the characters get really well developed. But in this episode, she was actually in it a decent bit, and she was trying to convince Picard to tell them that they were on drugs, not to just let them go, because, it's just, they're going to keep getting exploited, and she wanted them to tell them so that they could, kind of ease off of it. And she even offered to make them something that would, like, ease their withdrawal symptoms and make it easier for him, and Picard was saying that he couldn't because of the Prime Directive. And she got kind of annoying because she was harping on it the whole episode, but, I mean, at least she was in it, because I really like Beverly. Beverly's one of my favorites, and I think that later in the show, in the later season, her character gets fleshed out a lot more. But just here, I don't know, it's kind of nice to see her actually, like, standing up for something. And at the end, she had the talk with Picard, and Picard saying how the Prime Directive's there for a reason. Anytime that you interfere with more primitive culture, it never ends well. And that makes sense, but the whole episode is just like, come on, Picard, just tell him. Like, just this entire problem would just go away if you would just be like, hey, you're on drugs. And it gets frustrating when episodes are arranged like that, when the only conflict is the Prime Directive. I think that happens more often than I would like, just because obviously the Prime Directive is a big part of the Star Trek universe. I mean, that's the reason that they can't just go around and do whatever they want. It's a way to put a limit on their capabilities within the framework of the show. So, you know, I think it's important that they have it. They can't just be running around willy-nilly doing whatever they want. It's another constraint to put on them to create conflict. But when the entire episode is based around that, it seems contrived just because, you know, there's, like, if it wasn't for this one rule, they could just fix all these people's problems. And it's not even like in Who Watches the Watchers, which it's a society that's really primitive. They figure out that the Enterprise exists, and they accidentally start worshipping Picard the deity. Like, these people in this episode, they aren't going to do that. They're advanced enough. Like, they have warp drive capability, obviously. They're advanced enough that they're not going to be irredeemably affected by this. They might be, but it's not to the extent in some other episodes. And it's just like, there's so many better plot lines they can come up with that it doesn't seem necessary. So, sorry, I'm filming using my my camera because my video camera, first of all, it's at home, second of all, it has terrible quality compared to this, and warnings are like flashing up on the screen saying that I'm charging while filming a video, and I guess that's bad. But I am actually nearing the end of this anyway. But it kind of frustrates me. I can't really think of any other examples right now of when that happens. If you can think of anything, let me know, because I think it probably pops up more often. It definitely happens more often when, like, the entire episode is just based around the fact that they can't violate the Prime Directive. And, well, I guess that's what Justice was with Wesley. It was a couple episodes back, you know. So, like, that was something, but they end up violating the Prime Directive there. And it's one of those things where if you're going to base an episode around it, we already know that they occasionally do violate it, so it doesn't seem like a big deal. But sometimes it's like, hey, these people are going to suffer, or be on they're either going to suffer or they're going to be on drugs forever, or both if we don't help them, but we can't. And I don't know. Anyway, that bothered me, but I do, you know, I get why it exists, and I get why they have it in the show, because, you know, it makes them have to have morals, I guess, and be philosophical about stuff. But, I don't know, this episode, it's not that good. I hate to say that, because I love this show so much. I love it as a whole, but some of the individual episodes, they just bug me. It's also the last episode that Tasha's in. The next episode is Skin of Evil, and I'm kind of terrified about reviewing that, because I hate that episode. Tasha was my favorite character when I was a kid, even though she was only in part of a season. I don't know, she was like my role model or something. Going back, I'm not 100% sure why. I mean, I still like her, but I don't know why I love her so much as a kid. But I really, really liked her, and Skin of Evil was just like a horrible episode to watch. So that's going to be fun to review next week or so. But anyway, I love it if you guys would tell me what you thought of this episode. What you think about me making videos again. You know, any input you want to give me about where you think my channel should go in the future, because I'm obviously going to continue doing Star Trek, but since I've taken a year off, I'm kind of seeing this as a new start. So if you have any input about anything, let me know in the comments. I will reply to you, obviously. Have a nice chat about drugs and Tasha and, I don't know, the DARE program, or whatever you want. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your week.